talk about here, and even I had another wild idea in terms of understanding the second phase, the second mission, the second level that the viceroy, that the king's main advisor, main man, is searching for the lost princess, as you know. In the first half, well, he fell asleep twice and didn't get her out. And then while he was asleep for the 70 years, she changed. She's now no longer in the old location. She's now can be found in the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. And we had a lot of ideas in terms of what is that Golden Mountain and Pearl Castle that it relates to globally. So people say globally, it is like say, in terms of the world scale. Can you please, anybody there can please mute? So globally, of course, that relates to, I'm going to just cut to the chase. Some people say Mount Sinai. Some people say the temple. I want to say Jerusalem and the temple because it's very important, the idea of Jerusalem. To build Jerusalem, of course, Rabbi Nachman holds it's not the Jerusalem. We need to build our Jerusalem here first. Jerusalem comes from two words, Yeru Shalem, Yerushalayim, that Avram Avinu called the city of Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. He called it Hashem Yireh, that Hashem could be, you could be in the state of awe. And Malki Tzedek, who's really Shem, the son of Noah, he called it Shalem, Ir Shalem. So Hashem made a compromise. He took Avram's name, how he called the mountain, Hashem Yireh, and he put Melchizedek, Shem's name of Shalem, Yerushalem, Yerushalayim. But really, if you put the concept together, we always have to step back and get the concept. That the concept is a complete state of awe. Okay, Yerushalem, or seeing Yireh, seeing in a complete state. Okay, complete seeing. How's that? And of course, as we know that Jerusalem, the temple, the holy temple in Jerusalem, is a place where a person can go and actually have the experience. It's like you're going into the vortex. It's like you're I forgot what they called Sedona, Arizona, right? There was like I think they kind of vortex. People go there, meditate, do yoga because they think there's some kind of, and it could be. But we know the real holy one is in Jerusalem. Okay, so we'll get into exactly what it means to build Jerusalem in our hearts. Because really, first it has to be here. Jerusalem has to be your fear, your awe, your seeing God. Your relationship has to be whole. And then, of course, that will result in a manifestation in the world of a built Jerusalem, not like the Jerusalem you see now, talking about like there's the Zohar speaks about, not just that the temple is supposed to come from heaven, but Jerusalem is supposed to come from heaven as well. But let's just get back now into the story of the lost princess before we get into that. So as we know now, and we read a bit about it, just to recap a little bit, the second part of the story of the lost princess, that now he's on a new mission. He has to find the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle, and he searches through the deserts, and he meets consecutively three giants, right? And each giant is carrying this immense tree, and each giant tries to dissuade him, going, no such thing exists. And the first giant, he's in charge of all the animals, and he blows his whistle, rings his harp, rings a bell, and all the animals come. And then he asks the animals, anybody seen a Golden Mountain? And then all the animals say no. See foolish tales, go home, really tries to dissuade him. And then the second one, of course, he's in charge of all the birds, the second giant that he meets years later in the desert, and we're also carrying an immense tree. And then he's in charge of all the birds. He summons all the birds. Anybody seen a Golden Mountain and a Pearl Castle? You guys fly everywhere. No. The birds can't, the beasts can't see it. The birds can't see it. And then finally he meets the third brother, giant, carrying a immense tree again. tries to dissuade him. No such thing exists. He summons all of the winds, and all the winds come, except the one wind that came late. And the giant was very mad at it. Why are you coming late? He says, I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I had to carry a lost princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. And then that's where he says, oh, really? I guess it does exist. All of a sudden, there's a shift. And that's when the giant, actually, the third giant, helps him. And he wants to know what's valuable there. And they go, everything is valuable there, which is an interesting concept. A lot of concepts that we do see in this. We spoke about last week, the first half of the story was building a yearning, noticing that there's could be more. The way of the Jew is always a way that we are involved in fixing something. And in order to fix something, you have to see what more could be. So there's a yearning for more. And then here, though, on the second half, when he's journeying to finally, he gets to the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. And then the story ends. Okay. He doesn't say how he got the princess. We don't get to see the glorious Hollywood ending of the princess running to her father's arms and everybody's crying. Right? We don't get to see that. Why not, Rabbi? What's going on? Okay. So, in any case, they don't finish the story, and I'll explain why. And if I do forget, please remind me. Okay. We have to go back. Okay. But the second part of the story is he's confronted by barriers, obstacles that try to dissuade. No, it does exist. He's persistent. Okay. And he doesn't let go. As much as the world and entities try to stop him, he says, no, it does exist. Okay. Even to the point where he cries. So the idea first we have to understand is, what are these giants carrying immense trees? So if you look at page 48, it talks about there in the commentary at page 48, as he's on this journey and he finds the first giant, and the giant, says, "Who are you? I'm an earth man. I'm a human." Okay. Interesting thing, though, you have to notice that in the beginning of the story, we don't want to get into too many details, but in the beginning of the story, when he went into the castle, he left his horse behind. And that was like kind of like his body, kind of in a certain way. Somehow a shedding of the bodily influence. And then now what happens in terms of the second half, in terms of his quest for the Golden Mountain, he leaves his servant behind. Now the servant, according to some people, is like the intellect. So here's where the interesting thing happens, and how we have to develop ourselves is to let go of too much overthinking. Don't get complicated. Go simple. Rabbi Nachman would say, halavai. Halavai, that means if it can only be that I just make it to the level of being a simple Jew. How do you like that? Just simple. Okay, no complications. So there's a certain place you have to leave that intellectual part of the being behind, because now we're on a quest for a higher level of existence. Now here's where we go, and I'm going to cut right to the chase with this Golden Mountain Pearl Castle stuff. Okay. Now, actually, I'm going to leave it. We said we were going to discuss the Große Menschen. Yiddish, Große Mensch. What is a Große Mensch? Okay. Große Mensch means a great man. Okay. Doesn't mean Große like he's a big fat man. Okay. Even though I have a tendency to think that. But basically, the translation is a great man. And that's what he says here. Okay. So the concept here, interestingly enough, that when you say it's a great man, so then you're basically in this realm, in this world, and you're confronting great men, and maybe you're asking them for the keys to the success, or just to take another step back. We're going to take a lot of steps here and there and there. The Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle is the aha of our experience. We're always, I'm serious, we know this, you know this. We're always after the aha. We really crave it. We want more aha, just like you want more cowbell. Okay. We want more aha. So part of that lost princess is looking for that epiphany that we want to reconnect and feel that connection. That's all about going after the lost princess. Keep in mind the parable that I gave you guys last week about Rabbi Nachman and the Hungarian wine, or Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, who talked about a person who heard a certain melody and all of his problems disappeared. So all of those are, representative of a place where we have a connection where we can see above and beyond anything, and there are no problems anymore, or everything, or you're actually just in a state of total trust that everything's going to be okay. So in any case, the first thing that when you understand that it's a great man, so that means an earthly man. But then Rabbi Kaplan goes into this other um, explanation that it relates to the four worlds, actually the worlds of Atzilut, Bria, and Yetzira. Okay, really not Atzilut, but more like Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. That these are representatives of like the angels that are dwelling in those realms. And of course, according to what the nature is, this viceroy has reached a place of an out of body experience, or he's going into different levels or different domains, and they are the angels that he goes ahead and connects with and tries to find out where is this lost princess. So where's this golden mountain? That was one. And it's kind of hard because don't forget, it has to have relevance for us. And Rabbi Nachman would not teach this story if it didn't have a personal relevance for everybody to connect. So as much as you could say that, and he does bring it from Rimzei Maasiot, okay, there is a parish that will explain that. But then here he says something else. These three men represent the three levels of the soul, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. That's an interesting, just period, right? So in encountering the three men, the viceroy can be taking on the aspects of the three patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. That's an interesting way now to put those concepts together. As we know, our soul, we have basically 5 levels of soul. 3 are anchored in the body, and then the other 2 are called a peripheral or a hovering soul. Okay, so the lowest part is called the nefesh, resting. Ruach is like a wind. The shama is like a breath, but it mostly anchored in the mind. You have the liver, the heart, and the mind. And then we have other layers of soul that cannot be contained in the body. They're peripheral, called a makif. The idea here is that Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov fixed an Adam Arishon soul. They came and fixed, like Abraham fixed the nefesh, and Yitzchak came and fixed the ruach of Adam. Adam would sin in the Garden of Eden. He blemished all his levels of soul, or certain levels. And Abraham came and he fixed one level. Yitzchak came and fixed the next level, which is ruach, and Yaakov Avinu fixed the neshama. And so here it's kind of like you're embodying the way he explains it here, taking on the aspects of these 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak. In other words, in their qualities, their character traits. How did Abraham Avinu behave? How is Yitzchak? What is their, what would Larry, what would I don't know what they would do. What would the Baal Shem Tov do? So what would Larry David do, or whatever? Okay. In any case, what would the neshama do? What would Yaakov Avinu, how would he approach it? And there's a way we can always connect that, because they do exist within our soul. We just have to ask it. We just have to access it. You just have to punch in the address. You punch in the address, and then, okay, Avram Avinu, okay, Yitzchak, Yaakov presents another difficulty. And the other There's a interesting play on the Hebrew word, Rabbi Nachman. Memnun Yud Ayin really means obstacle, but yet the same root, the same letters, Mem Nun Ayin, is actually, you could use another word, Moneh, which means motor, which means like motivation. So it's like the obstacle becomes a motivation. Okay, we could see that a lot if we could utilize that in our own lives. That if when you want to do something holy, instantly, Rabbi Nachman says, instantly, heaven or the other forces, the dark side has to stop it. So they'll get into your mind, your thoughts. They'll get into your emotions. They'll get into your body. I'm too tired. I'm lazy. I can't. Right? They'll get into something to stop you from doing it. And that is the obstacles that they throw at you in order for you to go, no, this is holy. I'm going to overcome this specifically. In other words, it's going to motivate me even more, like we talk about, where, let's say, kids, you're giving out candies to kids, but then there's one special candy, like the big chocolate lollipop. And you go like this and you go, no, not this. Take one of these. Take one of these. Right? And the kid goes, what'd you put behind your back? A motivator to whatever the patriarch could be, that the holy aspects of these parts of our soul want to make sure that we want it. So it tests us. And these giants could be there as a testing. So let's of the spirit, they can, the root of that, like this is just a manifestation of an obstacle that I see, right? But in another sense, we're looking for that aha. The golden mountain, the pearl castle also represents our soul. We want to connect to the root. Of who we are. About these three giants. The tree, by the way, interestingly enough, one idea is here he's wrote. Okay, so in other words, they're carrying their own expression of the 10 Sefirot and how that's expressed in their world. That's if you're looking at it like the angels in the angelic worlds, that those trees represent. These three is that they represent the sciences of this world and the philosophies, which represent obstacles, and they claim they have them. They're carrying a tree, and the tree has a lot of branches, but it has no roots. And so they say, wisdom without good deeds, that brings down in Pirkei Avos, in chapters of the fathers. If you have wisdom without deeds, in other words, you never put into practice, you're just philosophizing on the couch all day, right? Not doing any actions. So that's like a tree with a lot of branches and no roots. A wind comes and you're finished. So kind of like they're carrying a tree, it didn't have roots, had a lot of branches. Is kind of like representing like different philosophies that confront a Jew in his quest for his soul and the quest for his aha of life and the quest for Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. So all of them represent kind of like a philosophy, but really they don't have any roots, which means it's a lot of wisdom that doesn't stand in for the if a wind would come. So that's another idea. I'm sorry, I'm throwing out all these ideas. You have to think about what resonates with you. They could be all of them. They could be none of. And another one that I read in another explanation was that they are the exiles, the places where we have been in. I wouldn't say, I'm trying to relate it to the different kingdoms because we have in our tradition 4 exiles, yet there were 3 men. Unless you say maybe the whole first part of the story when he was at the Dark Castle, that was like the first exile, which would be, Babylon. And then the other 3 exiles would be the Persians, the Medes, and the Greeks, and then finally Rome. You could say that, but the idea was in general, the place where we were exiled and among all those nations. And of course, they always tried to dissuade us. They always try to put obstacles in our way from us being Jewish. As a matter of fact, it pushed us to such a degree where we say, okay, let's just assimilate because we can't take this anymore. The persecution, can't get a decent job, can't. Let's just like the whole idea of that Haskalah movement that about 200 years ago of heck, let's just be like them and forget about our Jewish identity, which was ended up being worse. And the idea here is to get finally to the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. Oh, there was one other thing I was trying to see about these 3 giants, and this comes from something that just came into my mind. Okay. Talks 3 things that block a person from building his Jerusalem, the Jerusalem in his heart. And these 3 things, actually, the 3 that we celebrate, the 3 festivals that we celebrate, fix the 3 traits that block Jerusalem. And the 3 traits are basically what we call the taiva for money, the desire, the lust for money, a lust for food, and then there's a lust for intimacy. So those 3 are the things that block Jerusalem from becoming Jerusalem. Those 3 things, of course, as we say, any lust, it takes away. A person can't think straight when they're captivated by a lust of any kind, even food. Okay, I mean, put me in front of chocolate, that's it. That's it. I will kill. God forbid. But I know, man. I become no. Don't get in between me and the chocolate. Okay. It's like the 15th commandment: never interfere with dessert. Okay, just don't. So, in any case, it could be that these 3 giants are those 3 lusts that's trying to dissuade the soul from being self-actualized, from reaching its potential. So that could be each of those things. And then Jerusalem, of course, is the city of gold with a pearl castle, which is the Temple Mount, which is what I would like to envision. In other words, to get to that place, a person has to have the 3 festivals, which fix these 3 character traits. The 3 character traits, once again, the lust for money, that was fixed by Passover. The lust for licentiousness, that was for Shavuot, and for food is the holiday of Sukkot. So each one of those 3 festivals fixes the energy. If we tune in to the energy, fixes those things. So now we have to get into the big thing. Okay. And this is my idea that we spoke about all of the different ideas about the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. And Rabbi Kaplan's main idea was it's the next world. Okay, just 1 second. It's the next world. So I have a problem with that. I don't understand it. Like, I don't have a problem. I don't understand Because if this story, don't forget, Rabbi Nachman said at the beginning, whoever I told, when I was on the road, I would tell the story, and whoever heard it had a thought of repentance. In other words, he had an idea, a thought in his mind to come back to the way of truth. So it has to have a relevance. It can't be about some guy who goes into the spiritual realm, into Olam Haba, because we're here to be searching for the lost princess. And if the lost princess is in the next world, well, then why should I search for her in this world? So I think in the very words of the question is the answer. Okay? The Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle is the idea that let's shoot for whatever it is that you want, that state of mind. It's all about the state. Everything's about getting into a state. That's what it means, like creating an angel. You're creating an energy. And we learned this from Nachshon ben Aminadav, also from Miriam and King David, that when Nachshon ben Aminadav, here they were, the Jewish people were at the parting of the sea, before the sea split, the sea was there. The Egyptians are chasing them. What are we going to do? Moshe says, just go. And Nachshon ben Aminadav from the tribe of Yehuda goes in and up to here, and that's when it splits. If you haven't heard that before, that one of the famous midrashim. And what is it? So the Kedushas Halevi asks, what was his attitude when he went in up to here? What was his attitude? Who says, I'm willing to die for God, or I am anticipating the greatest miracle. And of course, the Kedushas Halevi says it's the second one. I am anticipating the greatest miracle. That was the Oz moment that we call of Nachshon ben Aminadav. Follow me. Oz, which means he's going, he was almost as if saying, we're already singing about this, but he was more like in the mode of, we're going to be singing. We're going to be singing about this. And that was his attitude. We are going to be singing about this. It was the Oz attitude. And that's why Moshe, when he sang the song at the sea, he began with the word Oz. Oz is a fantastic word of going back to Nachshon's attitude, because he had what we'll call the Oz attitude. And we are going to be singing about it. As a matter of fact, I'm already singing about it. Okay? That he's already there. That's the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. In other words, to be there already, and to practice this all day long is very hard. But if you could do it for a minute or a second, even, and whatever it is that you want, whatever it is, really, we know that we're seeking the aha. Nothing in this world is going to go ahead and help us and give it to us. There's no other source. There's no source of our salvation. There's no other source for any of the good that comes to us. God is the only source. To go to anything else is idolatry. And measure for measure, Hashem just lets you go to that source, and then you find that it's really nothing more than an empty cistern. So in a certain sense, the highest thing that we could go ahead and hope for or have the energy of is the redemption itself, which is the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle, okay, represented by Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. But even just think about it instead of that physical manifestation in Jerusalem, you could go for, what does it feel like? Not only that you are redeemed, but the entire planet, humanity, is redeemed. That is the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. And the world says, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. Go home. There is no such thing as this redemption that you are seeking. World, planet redemption. And this is where the war that's actually right now we are fighting. And it's in the mind. It's a war of the thoughts, because they're bombarding you with all kinds of media and ideas and this and that. And we are being so bombarded because They don't want us to think about redemption. It's exactly what happened in Egypt. When we were in Egypt, the first time that Moses went to Paro and says, let us out, Paro says, I guess you guys got enough time on your hands to go ahead and even contemplate such a thing. So now you're going to make bricks without any straw because obviously you guys got too much time on your hands. So therefore, it made their work harder because what? Paro's whole idea, and it brings us down from Path of the Just, Mesilas Yesharim, to get you not to contemplate the direction of your life. So anything from you to contemplate the direction of your life and what is important. And the important thing is not only our personal redemption that we pray for every day when we say Goel Yisrael in the Shemona Esrei, the silent prayer. The Baal Shem Tov explains that prayer is for your personal redemption because you got to get out of the boat before you can help others get out of the boat. But we have a will, and the will within all of us is that we should it has to be an all for nothing. And our attitude, whether everybody makes it or not, is not our job, but our will. And believe me, I talk to people who go, those people need to die. I'm like, come on, man. You don't know who they are. You don't know you got to give them a break. They're Tinuk Shanishba. They've been captured as pirates. They've been educated in twisted ideas since a child, scrap, right? I'm like, no, that's not the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu. All through the 10 plagues, Moshe Rabbeinu was going to all the people going, Hashem, he really wants you to come. He really wants us all to go out. We can do it. You can do it. Hashem really cares about you. He really loves you. He was going like that to every single Jew. And 4/5 didn't make it out of the plague out of Egypt. 4/5 died in the plague of darkness. We don't want to go there. It's not our idea. It's not at all. No. As a matter of fact, we have to have like what we call holy chutzpah. Everybody or nobody. And Hashem, of course, that's what he wants. He wants us to be really, our heart to really go out to everybody. And the idea here of the geula, the redemption, has to be you want all of humanity to see God. Because if all of humanity had a taste on their level, and some people, too much light is very destructive. Could be. But in any case, we want the idea here of that, the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle, it does exist. And the forces, the giants, they want to tell us, no, it doesn't exist. Our actualized potential of who we can be, and we all have an idea of it in our minds, of the highest type of person with the highest quality of midot, and you use your imagination to envision yourself in the highest form of consciousness you can possibly be, to be a light to other people and guide them and advise them in a loving way. It's so there, you could feel it. That is the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. You in your heightened spiritual state. That is it. And in order to do that, first of all, as we see in the story of the Viceroy, you have to believe it exists. And then, not only that, in the face of all adversity, in the face of anybody who's dissuading you, you have to say, no, I am the creator. And that's where we're going to go into Shavuos now. I'm going to talk a little bit about Shavuos. I'm going to go out of this live stream and stop this recording. Just give me a minute here, please, because I want to make sure this is kind of like a different class.